this is all about you. This is literally, I ask.
It's terrifying. Okay.
It is, but it's two questions. It's only two questions. I will interject here and there. I will interrupt because that's, if I have a thought in my head, I can't not say it because I'll lose it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I
But
feel you.
so Jesi, what is your ADHD journey? You are
Whew.
free to tell this however the hell you want. You can curse, you can swear, you can get mad,
Okay.
diagnosis, all of it.
I guess specifically the ADHD journey only started about 2 years ago, maybe a
Wow.
little more. So I had absolutely no clues, was not even on my radar. This was not something that had been talked about. I was one of the people who I think had a conception of like, this is just little boy, like this is a kid's problem, right? Like this is boys
Oh my
in
God, I'm so
trouble
tired of
at
hearing that.
school.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that I can think of a few examples from my kindergarten, first grade, second grade class, and that's it, right? And I was
Right.
a psychology major, if you can believe it. So even more upset a little bit that this was like one paragraph in one textbook that just said, is classified by trouble in school and hyperactivity. And we moved on. So despite having all kinds of issues that I now look back and see a lot of signs of, inattentive and women type ADHD in particular, I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with anxiety. I've had
That's
migraines,
unbelievable.
panic attacks, and just lots and
Yeah.
lots of difficulties. But like it was never brought up.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my journey. And I found during the pandemic, when we're all online and people started getting a little bit more honest, I think, on social
Yeah.
media, myself included, and there was a lot more discussion around mental health and sharing things. It was actually a coworker of mine that kind of just kept quietly sharing ADHD memes on his stories, and I
Nice.
just found them all super relatable. I would see all of these, and I'd be
Okay,
like,
that's really
why is
funny,
this me?
actually.
That is so weird. And then
Yeah.
I, would Google it and I would see disorganized and hyper and trouble in school. And I was none of those things. Um, so I was like, nope, not me. And I moved on. But I started having a lot of trouble during COVID, for lots of reasons that we can get into or not at the same time.
Hey,
I had a lot
hey,
of trouble with anxiety
true story.
and started like
So
started taking my mental health more seriously, and I started like, okay, let's get at this treatment resistant anxiety and figure out what's going on. And at the same time, I'm seeing these posts, and took a little while for me to just click the right link and open the rabbit hole. But once
oh
I
my
did, it
God.
was just like, oh shit, all these strangers have my exact story.
Yeah. That's that. So if I can interject for 2 seconds here, the whole situation with the COVID and all that, I think that brought a lot of people's mental health to the forefront.
Yeah.
Because we were sitting there alone all day, every day, like not being able to do anything. And now we all connected. So in part, it was a blessing a little bit. But obviously, I'm not going to call COVID a blessing, but I'm going to say that, like,
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, there are definitely some silver linings, as awful as it is. I think there's always a positive side to really awful things that you kind of have to find, or what else are we doing here?
right. And also, so this podcast, I'll just be straight up with you, is I try to look for the good in people. This is not a, you know, podcast where I say, you suck at this and let's cry on the couch and all this. It's more of a let's get up type thing. However, everyone is free to say whatever they want because I feel like no one's ever given us the ability to say what we want to say, how we want to say it. It's like, oh, I have to do this, or I have to perform this way, or I have to do this and that, the other. No,
right.
that's not what this is. This is, you are free to be 1,000% yourself. And if you say, hey, Lobel, fuck off, I think you suck, I'm like, Awesome. That's great. that's, that's if that's you, that's you.
Yeah, because in true ADHD fashion, I kind of learned this about myself and dug in really hard. And um, I'm a video producer. I used to work in reality TV and
No shit.
advertising.
Oh, that is
And
cool as hell.
so
That is
in true
so cool.
ADHD fashion, I jumped right in. I was like, I'm going to make a documentary about this. And it snowballed with a friend of mine. So I'm currently in post-production on a documentary about women with ADHD. So
Okay, so you're
I've been
fucking
doing a
awesome
lot of talking
immediately.
about this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You're the first
incredible.
podcast I've been on though. So
Okay, no,
for letting me
it's fine.
practice.
And honestly, at the end of this, don't worry
I'll
about
let you take it. I mean, I do the same thing. So like when someone's in the hot seat, I'm gonna
this. Is
treat their story with respect, but I also don't want anyone to micromanage the edits. So
Yeah, editing is my thing. I love editing, and the reason I do is because it gave me. So I've been struggling recently with my Adderall medication, and I have taken a leave of absence from work because, and I have a great job. I've had the same boss, and he and I are kind of like we know each other, and
that's awesome.
yeah, and that's the only way I can see someone with ADHD succeeding for the long haul is if they trust the other person that is working alongside them.
Yeah.
And I trusted my boss and it worked. And so right now, when I'm going through this medication fluctuation and all this kind of stuff, I'm like, I need some time. He goes, take all the time you need. You don't have to put in leave. You don't have to do any of that shit. Just let me know when you want to come back and you're welcome.
That's great. That's so good when you find that, because that's, I think, something I hear from a lot of people is bouncing around different jobs. And
that's my whole thing is like every person with ADHD bounces from this to this to this, thinking that it will be ultimately be better. It's like the grass is greener, the grass is greener, the grass is greener. But we're really good at people, I think. And I think we're really perceptive with reading people. And if you read someone that genuinely gives a shit about you, stick with that person, is what I think. But like Dorsey, for example, she and I go at it about the scientific stuff and all that, but she's helping me with this.
I love that. Yeah, I don't know her super well, so I would love to get to know her better because she's in a group. Friend of a friend of a friend connected me with a group chat.
Awesome. Awesome.
And everyone's just been super helpful and supportive. It's just kind of a place for everyone to vent about ADHD issues.
Right.
And
I think so. My bedrock principle is I think that friendship is actually the cure for this.
I would totally agree with that. Yeah. I think it's been the biggest thing for me and part of the reason I wanted to make this documentary was just kind of to put the word out that there's a community here. Cause I think that's the part that gets missed is people 100%. Get a diagnosis and they get slapped with a label and maybe a medication. And then you're just sent out the door and on your way. And there's no guide.
That's exactly right.
Recently, I'll do a quick plug for my friend Jesi Anderson. Just wrote a book called The Quick Start Guide to Adult ADHD.
Okay, yeah, I interviewed him 2 years ago.
Awesome. Yeah, so he put that up for the same reasons. Like there's no guide. You're just kind of thrown into this pool. And I've met a lot of people too that have, I got diagnosed with that in college, but it doesn't affect me. And they move on and they don't want to define themselves by it. They don't want to label it. And I think they're missing out because it's something that you're going to have to deal with your whole life.
I know.
And
it changes every day. It changes every day.
And finding the community that gets it has been just like, for me, everything. Finding other people who are just like, they understand what crazy shit I'm spewing and they don't judge when I say I can't do something or I'm having trouble with something.
Isn't that everything?
Ridiculous to everyone else. Yeah.
That's everything. So you will get an email from one of my friends that helps me with this or whatnot. Every single Friday at 5:30. Everyone that has been on this podcast is welcome to join a non-recorded Zoom call and just shoot the shit. We curse,
Oh,
we
cool.
interrupt each other, we, everything like that, and everyone laughs and all that. And it lasts an hour, but it's been immensely beneficial for a lot of people, including me. Like, I started this
Yeah.
podcast because my wife's best friend took her own life about 5 years ago. And she was ADHD and bipolar. And I never felt that. Now, granted, I'm still best friends with her, used to work for me and whatnot. It's hard for me to tell this story, but I feel connected to you and for some reason, because you're honest.
Thanks.
Basically, he just recently remarried, and I was in his wedding and whatnot. But when that happened, like, I lashed onto that kid like you wouldn't believe, and it was like, all right, I'm going to give him some time to grieve, but then I'm going to fucking try my damnedest to help this, because she was never told how good she was by a lot of people. And that's where I want to just pinpoint what you're awesome at and harp on that instead of all this other shit. Because at the end of the day, like, if you can't sit still, if you can't do the laundry well, if you knock over this or if you do that or whatever, none of that shit matters at the end of life. All that matters is how much you care about people. Where's your heart
Yeah.
at? And I think that people with ADHD have hearts that are so much bigger. Okay, so on your tombstone, what do you want written? Do you want it to be exciting, passionate, cared about others, this and that and the other? Do you want it to be, oh, you did the laundry well?
Yeah.
I don't.
And burnt yourself out trying to do it.
Right, like that. But we get so down on ourselves, in my opinion, because small tasks every day, when compounded, lead to a lot of really serious issues.
Yeah.
And for me, it has represented that entirely. It's, let's get this one load of laundry done. Well, no, I'm not going to do that because I'm helping someone else. Well, okay, so go back and do it again. Go back and do it again. Go back and do it again. And I'm like, now I'm so overwhelmed that I can't focus on what actually matters. And then that dominoes into the next thing, which
Yeah.
is finances or this or that or whatever. And it's this is a debilitating disorder. It's also the most powerful advantage ever if you have people surrounding you that care about you.
Yeah. It's definitely the support piece is huge, because that's
Yeah.
that's one of the pieces that took me so long to connect with this disorder too. And I'm going to go ahead and use the word disorder because I believe with
Yeah,
that.
no, absolutely.
And like, because I'm not one of those people that normally checks the boxes. I mean, most people who know me, I'm the most organized person in, the whole world, to the point where I thought I had mild OCD was the label that made the most sense to me for a long time, even though a lot of that didn't fit. Like, there was a lot of, okay, well, this, I don't think the obsessive kind of catastrophizing in the way that most OCD applies, like, it's, if I don't do this thing, my family will die in a car crash. And I might be overgeneralizing that as well, but
no. Actually, one of
what
my
I
best
identified with,
friends
because it was,
from England,
yeah,
it has OCD, and he explains it in an amazing way. That it's not it's intrusive thoughts. Is, if I don't do this, I die in a car crash.
yeah. And mine, I never resonated with that piece of it, but it was very much like, if I don't check this 5 times, I will have anxiety the rest of the day about it. And then I'm looking back now and realizing a lot of that was overcompensation. And a lot of that was, what I broke through with my therapist was over functioning, because I can get the laundry done. I actually am pretty
That's
good
amazing.
at my finances. But I have these like elaborate fucking systems that take me like so much effort and hours. And I used to joke, like, I would work so hard. Like, I would work overtime, 100 hours in a week, to set up a system so that I could be lazy. And I'm using air quotes for your podcast listener, lazy, and coast off of that system. But then, you build so many and they all need little tweaks to maintain. And it got to the point where like I'm just drowning in task maintenance all day long to be functional. It's very much the all or nothing. It was like I either do all of these things perfectly with binders and labels and highlighters and all this, or I can't do it at all. And it's a real struggle for me to find the good enough and the in between. And that's something that I'm still really working on and kind of have identified that I do.
That's good that you're
a big part
working
of the
on it,
community
though.
piece too, is finding people where I'm comfortable enough saying that.
Yeah.
And
there's no judgment here.
Fall back a little.
Ever. There will never be judgment here. I do have to ask you though, on that, the things that you struggle with, are those things that ultimately matter in life?
It depends. I'm having like 500 ideas right now. I'm like, well, that one, yes, this one, no, on average.
Is it the smaller things or the bigger things?
Yeah, and it depends, because I think the small things compound, where
like
it's a small struggle. Like I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I am trying to offload a bunch of footage that I shot recently. That was,
nice.
I volunteered for a local nonprofit.
Lobau Spark is proudly supported by Leo Guinan, Kirk Hofstrom, Casey Elliott, Sarah Delano, Justin Allingham, Blushing Crafter, Jamie Young, and Beth Jones. It is now also supported by 14 anonymous supporters. And I understand that completely. I know I can swear and all that kind of shit. If you want to support it and be anonymous, I get it. I get it. Whether you want to be mentioned by name or remain anonymous, this podcast does not exist without all of you. And I love you.
They had a big event last week and I volunteered to shoot a bunch of stuff. But here's the thing. So I'm sitting down, I'm trying to offload it, and I don't have space because I've got 15 hard drives with temporary duplicate ? Folder backups. So I spent all day yesterday like kicking myself, because it's like those are just little like all I had to do was sit down and spend a few hours going through these duplicates and getting these drives cleaned up. And why didn't I do that before the shoot that I impulsively agreed to and ran out and did when I don't have time to do any of the editing for it?
That's 100%.
So it's that kind of thing. So it's like the little things. It's like, does that ultimately impact my ability to help this organization help more people? Like, yes. Okay. So that sucks. And I try not to go into a cycle where I beat myself up on that, because I'll get it done. It's just going to take me longer.
Right.
And yeah, and a lot of it is talking to other people again to like correct that self-talk and try to be like,
to shift it from,
what would you say? What would Dorsey say? What would my friend Katie say? What would my friend Bob say? Like,
right. We did get wristbands, like the whole WWJD thing. We did get wristbands for our favorite people, and they're just
what would ADHD community say?
Right, exactly.
Like 10 letters around the wrist.
But it's funny because you answered that in terms of the like domino effect of the bad, but what do you do well? And does that matter?
Yeah. And I think talking to people, I mean, that's definitely something that I've built a skill for in my career. Is I do a lot of like non-scripted, reality documentary. I would love to do something scripted. I just haven't really had the chance. But I have had a reputation in like getting the real story from people and kind of getting people to feel comfortable in a position where it's usually very scary. Like, when you sit down in a chair and there's lights and there's cameras in your face and there's all these things, it's scary for a lot of people, myself included. I mean, I kind of got into this because I didn't want to be in front of the camera. And if I was the one holding the camera, I could make sure I wasn't in front of it.
Right.
But kind of finding a niche of listening to people and giving them space to share. And then kind of as I'm going down this path, like finding how can I do more of that with the ADHD community and the mental health community? Because I love that.
You're already doing it. You're calming people down when they're under the spotlights, because you're perceptive as shit and you know what's going to work to help them breathe, to help them.
And the chaos of a shoot for me is when I'm at my calmest. It's like when that is.
Oh, hell yes. Okay, I love the chaos.
And and like speaking of jobs that you find a good connection with, I started working on HGTV shows that were like home renovations where we would come in and do like in 48 hours, 2 days, we're gonna completely renovate this yard, and we had like 40 volunteers and a crew of 15. And we would be like there at sunrise, before sunrise, because I'd have the coffee ready when everyone else arrived at sunrise. And it would be like ready to go. We would tear up the yard. We'd build the thing. We'd get in. We'd get our shots. We'd get out. And that's like felt great to me. I loved that. And then later in my career, when I quote unquote, like moved up the ladder and got into more of a management position, I hated it because I was just sitting there and like the tasks were easier on paper, right? It's like on paper, I was successful. I'd made it. I was in a top position. And all I was doing all day was reviewing things and adding notes.
Yeah.
And I was like losing my shit. Doing that.
Well, because it's like you do so well at this for so long, and then you get to a certain point and now it's boring.
And I was like, how is this so hard for me? This is the easiest video I've ever made. It's like some dental animations. And like I've been in like a rainstorm outside trying to shoot this project that isn't going well, and that felt easier, and I was calmer in that situation than I am sitting here like, oh god, fuck, storyboard, I forgot to respond to that one. I got 30 emails on this voiceover casting. What do I do? So
oh my god.
And it's like I feel like I've been trying to like find my way back to that old job ever since. Is like, how do I recreate that feeling of just being out in the chaos with my friends and having a good time? That's where you get in that last job too, or in that job that like it was going so well and I felt so comfortable. And so what did I do? I started researching, creating a side business. I started researching like real estate and investment finance. And I'm like, okay, so how do I do this? How do I totally run a side business? I started like moonlighting for a property manager because I love it. I'm like, let me start a second job in the background of this job because I can't just
can't just do nothing.
A nice thing and enjoy it. I have to like make it
that's
bigger.
So
and that's where I'm at right now is I've got like my foot in 5 different jobs and I need to pick one.
Oh god. Okay.
And I'm like,
that's gonna be
learning about one. I'm like good at this one. I can do that in my sleep. It pays the bills. All right, I'm gonna keep that going. I've got this one going that I started a few years ago and it's on maintenance mode. So I'm gonna keep that one going. I'm trying to learn how to get into this one, and then let me make this documentary too. Which is another full-time job, I'm finding out, because there's so much involved in that. You can't just make a documentary. You have to also, promote it and pitch.
It is this thing where ADHD, if we are supported with it, then we get bored. Because if we're supported, we exceed everyone's standards. Everyone's. And they love us for it. And then it's like, well, shit. Now what do I do? And then those people that supported you say, well, why can't you just be happy? And it's like, well, because being happy is not comfortable, and I need to be uncomfortable to get to the comfort so that I can actually survive. Does that make sense?
And that's something I hear a lot too. I think it's been an interesting journey too with my husband, because we've been together since right after we graduated high school. So we've been together. I'm like, nice. Think of the math. I want to say we've been together for 18 years. We just had our 10th wedding anniversary last fall, where I was actually out.
I'm at year 8
shooting this documentary. Yeah, I was actually shooting the documentary on our 10th anniversary. I left to go shoot this thing. But that's cool. We celebrate our dating anniversary. But yeah, it's been something like that too. He's like, why can't you're doing great. This is fine. Like, why can't you slow down? Why can't you just be happy with what you have? And
It's
I
because with
ask myself that a
ADHD,
lot,
you
and it's
can't be.
yeah, it's nice to have an answer now. It's nice to be like, because of ADHD,
Yeah. Well, and
instead of
also
I'm fucking
though,
up.
but I think that that's an epic thing. I think that when you're content with something with ADHD, you still strive for the next thing. What does every business want? What does every leader want? Is to never be satisfied.
Yeah,
So everyone's telling us like you're spastic and you're like, why can't you be happy? It's because we're trying to get to the next level. They criticize us for the way that we get to the next level. So like how is this a
right.
problem when our brains function so much better in getting us to the top than anyone else's? I,
Yeah, until it crashes and burns and goes offline unexpectedly. That's been the hardest part to deal with. It's just like,
well, yeah,
spontaneous burnout.
you
Or I
only
guess it's
have
not spontaneous. There's usually a very clear path of like, no, I pushed myself too hard. But
right, but
yeah,
if you had people surrounding you that said you were amazing and keep going, keep going, keep going, I don't think that burnout happens actually with a large group of people around you that genuinely care about. And
yeah,
that's my whole thing is I've been very blessed to have a large group of friends from high school because I had a football coach one time tell me that like you're spastic as shit. You're gonna skip my test. I know that, but you're gonna go to that party, aren't you? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, you're never gonna remember the test that you passed or failed, but you will remember those relationships with those people that you had at that party that will last forever. And I really latched on to that. I thought
yeah.
that was a really good statement because now I'm going through a little bit of issues with medication and whatnot, but I know I can get through it because I'm getting 30 texts a day saying, like, hey, by the way, call me. Hey, by the way, how are you? This, that, and the other. That that's the whole thing to me. And I'm overly emotional, obviously, but my
Join the club.
ADHD, right? My ADHD is all emotion. It's not a lot of facts, which is why Dorsey and I get along so well because she's all facts and I'm all emotion. But but it's I feel like if you have people surrounding you that honestly give a fuck about you, you can't fail.
Yeah. And that's
Because
another piece that I just was so mad that no one ever mentioned. And it's still like not in the DSM, and it's a big fight, I guess. And I want to be
should
part of that, of getting it back in, of the emotional dysregulation piece and like the
yeah,
emotional
yeah,
component. Because I think that when I finally stumbled across whatever link, I think it was like a subreddit. I finally was like, well, what does Reddit have to say about this? That's where I think I finally like opened the can of worms.
Wait, a subreddit. I'm sorry, I'm 40 years old. I don't know what that is.
No, it's fine.
There's
If you know. It's just like just finding people sharing their own stories, I
okay,
guess, is the
gotcha,
thing. It's like
gotcha.
instead of reading an article about what is ADHD, or instead of reading a blog post from some organization or medical source,
Right.
not to trash medicine, like let's make sure we keep things factual. But it was when I started reading other women and adults saying like, this is how it shows up for me. This is what it looks like. This is
Yeah.
how it affects me. Then I was finally able to be like, oh, okay. Now I'm seeing it in myself.
Yeah.
Now this
And,
makes sense.
and I think that at the end of the day, I think that unless you get to know the person with ADHD, the person themselves, you can't diagnose anything. You've got to get to know the person first before you understand their symptoms. And because if you get to know the person as a human being, then you understand
Yeah.
how this plays out in our life. And it's so sad to me to see people like, oh, here's 50 milligrams of this, or here's, whatever it is. There's no comfort there. It's you suck. Here's a pill. That that's not the way to do
It
this,
can
I don't
be.
think.
Yeah, if it's presented that way, and that's another part where it's like if you're just kind of thrown
Yeah.
into a diagnosis without labels, or the flip side, like me and a lot of women, I had to come armed with articles and paperwork, and I still had to like
So
fight my way
stupid.
through 5 doctors
Are you
before I
kidding
finally
me?
got a diagnosis.
5 doctors?
Five
The
doctors over like 8 months of like constant daily, not daily. I definitely wasn't able to do it daily, but constant follow up and pushing back and filling out forms and
You've
making
got to
calls.
be kidding me. Eight
Yeah,
months?
yeah. And then I hear that from a lot of other people too. It's like once you find out, and even, I was working with a therapist, I brought it to her, and she was like, "Oh, yeah," did some of her own research, was like, "That tracks." But I guess just the medical system and insurance in particular makes it really, really difficult. They, want to
Yeah.
do. I think that's the thing with guys too. It's just so funny. Like I hear guys, "Oh yeah, no," and immediately I got a diagnosis and an Adderall
Yeah.
prescription. And for
Yep.
women, it's like, well, let's exhaust all of these anxiety medications. Have you gotten more sleep? Well, you smoke cannabis occasionally, so you're going to have to go completely off of that for months. And
People smoke
other
pot.
women
It's
I
what
talked to at the
happens.
retreat were like, yeah, like, well, you aren't divorced, you have a job, so you don't qualify. And that's not true. And I want more people to realize that doesn't mean you're not struggling. And again, the emotional component was such a big piece for me that when I did get a chance to try medication, that was the biggest thing for me. Is suddenly I was able to have a conversation with my boss, or
Yeah.
go into something with a little bit of confrontation, or stand up for myself without immediately choking up and crying and getting
That's
overwhelmed
awesome.
and anxious or something. Like that's been the biggest thing for me, is it helps with emotional regulation more than
Yeah.
anything.
Wow. Jesi,
But no one prescribes it for that. Yeah.
of course they don't. Of course they don't. Because all they're doing is saying X equals Y. It's, oh, they can't sit still. Here's a pill. But what 12-year-old guy in math class cares about? Like, this isn't,
Yeah,
it's overprescribed for us. It's underprescribed for women.
totally. And I part of that too, I think it's like I wish someone had told me it was okay for me to run around like that. Too. I think girls get so much
Okay, well,
pressure
I
to
will
be
tell you right now,
not
run around all
ladylike,
the
don't
fuck
do
you
that.
want. Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm in trouble all the time because I'm taking off, I'm chasing, running around with the boys. And like, I have a younger brother, and I'm like, I want to go play with them and smash stuff. And it's just like, girls don't do that.
that's so stupid. Because if it's me and I go around and smash stuff, it's fine.
Yeah. Don't
That's
climb a tree. You're in a skirt. Yeah.
that's not fair. Like to y'all that want to go do the same thing. Like that's not
Right.
fair. That's stupid as fuck. That makes me very mad. But I do have to ask you one more question, and this is the hardest question ever. Uh, what are you most proud of, Jesi? Now, this cannot be any significant other, any kids, or anything you have done. It has to be an individual characteristic within you that you are most proud of.
A thing I've done or a characteristic in me?
Characteristic in you.
Ooh.
I know this is very hard for everyone to answer, but
Yeah.
it does lead to good things.
I'm gonna regret this all day and think of something better later. Um, I think I'm like, and I'm immediately second guessing myself. I'd like to say that I've developed a good sense of empathy,
Empathy.
and kind of especially, yeah, just kind of trying to give people the benefit of the doubt and figure out what their
Beautiful.
perspective is and what their story is before I make a judgment. And that's hard a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I don't always do it right, but yeah, I think that's something I've developed that's led to work that I love and met a lot of people that I like, and I think that's led to good things. So I'll say that.
Awesome. So you might be the most empathetic person you know.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay. Okay, I'm just saying, like, it's so interesting to do this because people are like,
Yeah.
I'm passionate, I'm this and I'm that, or I'm proud of my kids, or I'm proud of my husband, I'm proud of this. I want to know the best characteristic within you, and I
Yeah.
want you to brag about it because we don't do that enough.
I know. Yeah, that's true. And I'm thinking, I'm like, oh God, do I have a better answer? What else could I say?
No, no,
I
no.
need a list of traits in front of me. I think just because we're talking about it, that's what came to mind. Yeah, I think sometimes I can be empathetic to a fault too. Like I'm very good
Me
at
too.
excusing other people's shitty behavior.
Right.
Because I'm like, well, you know where it's coming from. So that's something I've actually been working on is kind of
Yes.
acknowledging and giving myself some standards when I'm
Right.
like, no, that's just I don't, I understand where they're coming from, but that's still shitty.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, I understand you, but fuck you.
Do you see how I spun it into a negative?
Yeah, exactly. That's my whole thing. So we have to spin this into a positive. Jesi, again, what
Yeah,
characteristic within you are you most proud of? What is your best characteristic?
I'm empathetic and
There
give
it is.
people space to share their stories.
Okay. There it is. Do you truly believe that?
Not always, I think,
Okay.
generally speaking,
Okay. Generally speaking, can
I
I
do. And
give
I'm working on, that's part of the work I've been doing the last couple of years too, is believing that I'm able to do these things when it seems like some of the evidence doesn't support that. But now I kind of
I
know
love that.
why.
I love that. Can I give you just a 1 minute spiel of what I think your best characteristics are?
Please.
um, you are perceptive as shit to the to the point of when I was opening up to you about my medication struggles, you latched on to that and you were like, "Oh, okay." Like you brightened up in that moment. So that's empathy, which you just stated. It's also you were saying this entire time that I do this and I do this and I do this. You're great at business. You're great in your personal life. Like there's nothing actually wrong with you. It's
Yeah. I wouldn't argue with that. You didn't get a lot of time. Yeah. I would throw
but
out that my personal life is often neglected for my work.
but I honestly think, I mean, you've helped me. So you just proved your empathy throughout just us talking for an hour.
Thanks.
So empathy is actually, in my opinion, your best quality because you noticed a struggle in me and you latched onto it and you tried to help me immediately.
The puzzle is like, how can I help this person?
Yeah.
How there's a problem that needs to be solved. What can I do? So when you hear other people
Right.
are saying that they're struggling, it feels very natural, I think, for ADHD, especially to jump in a little much and be like, what can we do? How can we help? I have ideas.
Right. Because that's dopamine that we desperately need that's dopamine is you see someone that's struggling, like you obviously saw in me when I was explaining certain things, you said, okay, I know how to help that person. I can tell him this and this and this. That's amazing. If your worst quality is that you care too much, so fucking be it. Like that's what an amazing ability to where is if your worst quality is that you care too much about other people, that's what we naturally do.
Yeah. It's just kind of it's the directing of it too, where it's like
Right.
I'll accidentally neglect one person in my passionate pursuit to help another do some other big thing.
Right, but the thing is, we're the story of Rudy, honestly.
Yeah. So can I say one thing to you too?
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
I really appreciate that you are taking the time to try and make this not try, sorry, but that you're making this podcast
Thank you.
and giving other people space to share and putting yourself out there and sharing your stories too, because
It's the
that's
only way.
meaningful.
Yeah, thank you. It's the only way, in my opinion, to do this is to. So about a month ago, I had a person from England, um, Ohio, Virginia. They all flew down to meet me in real life because my big thing is I will meet you in real life. I will. Like that's the way it is. And they all came down and we hung out for like a week. And it
That's
was so
awesome.
fun. But I told him I was like, just bet me on this. Like I swear to you, I will meet you in real life. And the reason that I will meet you is because I honestly believe that like genuine human connection can fix this problem. And it's like all these people with their strategies and their, oh, if you do this, it'll work and this and that. You're selling a product. How about you just get to know the fucking person? Like that's
Yeah.
my whole thing is yes, you can make money on this and you should be able to make money on a strategy, but you got to get to know the people first before you. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jesse. It's very hard for me to like. I'm
No,
so
I get
passionate
that.
about this that like I can't even express it. Like it's beyond conscionable thought. Like I'm 41 years
Yeah.
old. I don't know what social media is. I don't know what all this bullshit is. So, but all these people signed up to help me. So now it's like, oh, okay, well, I can post your YouTubes or your TikToks or whatever. And I'm like, what is YouTube? What I
Yeah.
just when I saw my friend lose his wife to suicide, that was it for me. I was like,
Yeah.
nope, that's it. I trust you. Actually, you're an amazing person. I I'm not trying to promote anything. I just want people to be able to talk about this
Yeah.
openly because
Definitely.
when there is
I think,
friendship involved, like that's all that we need to be able to be like, hey, by the way, okay, well, that person says I'm weird, but you say I'm awesome. So fuck the person that says that I'm weird. I'll latch on to that person and I'll just go do the job.
yeah.
I don't know. It yes, I'm very passionate. I'm sorry, Jesse.
No, I love it. It's
But
refreshing. And it's honestly, because I think talking about it is,
it's everything.
it's everything. Absolutely. But it's also like, you got to be able to talk about struggles specifically, because that's
Yeah,
another big thing during COVID is like, let's talk about mental health. And then, I learned really quickly and I was working on, a lot of campaigns for that. And it's just kind of this loosely vague, like, let's talk about it. But there's sort
right,
of an underlying implication of like, let's talk about it so you can get it off your chest and then shove it under the rug and then move on.
right,
And
right.
there wasn't really like a let's talk about it as in this is something that I have to deal with. This is
Yeah,
something that I have to work around. This is something that I can't
it's
always
so
explain. And
yeah,
there are certain parts that you're just gonna have to
yeah,
live with, not like even work around, but just live with.
right. And
And
you can
knowing you're not the only one is everything on that. Instead of
I
like,
100%
it's
agree.
normal. Everyone does that. It's like, no, but
No,
these
not
people do,
really.
and
Yeah.
they get it.
I remember my wife and she's been great because she is so good at finances and I am awful at finances. It's like I keep putting quarters into the gumball machine hoping to get the red one kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, I'll just handle the finances." I'm like, "Okay." So if you have someone that just handles things that you struggle with that truly loves you, then that's friendship. That's also love and marriage and all of that. But like, I don't know what finances are. I just don't. She handles all of it because I can't. I'm too impulsive. If I have $100,000, I'm going to Vegas. That's it. and I will put $90,000 on one, hand. I know that, but honestly, I told her that, so now she doesn't allow me to make those horrible decisions that I would have made
Yeah.
if I didn't have her, and that's a massive, massive benefit. It's also, to me, but I'm good at other things that she's not good at. You got to bring out the positives in what you do well. And what I do well is working. I'm very good at dogging things to death and whatnot. And I'm also really good at thinking outside the box. She's not, but she's good with finances. However, when she gets a promotion and she's struggling in her business as to like, what do I do now? It's like, okay, I can handle that. Like, come to me with that. I can help you with that. And so that's what we do, is what one person struggles with, the next can pick you up.
Yeah. You complement each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Right. If everyone were to do that with people with ADHD, it's solved.
Yeah. We all kind of just fill in the blanks for each other.
Right, exactly. But it's frustrating for other people to like understand how difficult it can be when, like today, for example, today was a horrible day in the morning because I lost my keys, but I didn't lose my entire keys. I lost the one key to turn on the car because it was a one. It was just ridiculous. Yeah. So that was a 3-hour delay. My wife got really pissed and said, "Hey, by the way, I've got work to do." And I was like, "This isn't your problem. It's mine. I'll figure it out." So then I call the locksmith and all that. They come out and they fix it. And now we have 3 keys. Now we have put one key upstairs, one key inside the TV, and then one key on my keychain so that I can't lose them ever again. So what was a huge problem and very frustrating turns into that'll never happen again because I had someone supporting me.
Yeah. Or you come up with a system too. I mean, I think that's what to get around a lot of things too, is like I would come up with some kind of system. I think that's, aggressively independent, where I'm just sort of had learned like, well, no one else understands what's going on. People are, judging me for it. So I'm going to come up with something that, means that I don't have to rely on other people. And that's what is hard and isolating. Then it's sort of like, no wonder I got depressed or anxious. And it's
the comorbidity thing. And
telling people.
Yeah. But the honesty of being like, hey, by the way, I suck at this. I need your help. That's what I think a lot of us don't do is say like, hey, by the way, because we're so prideful of what we do well, because what we do well far exceeds like anyone's.
Or even not suck, but like I have to work so hard at this.
I know. And that's why.
So it's like maybe it's suck at it, but also I want to reframe that a little bit for you.
No, I know. Yeah, I'm just more blatantly honest with her. I'm like, I suck at this. So
much effort. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something I've had to work on too. And I think it's been a detriment to some people who, have been around a long time, like my husband, where it's like, hey, I suck at this. It's like, but you do so well. It's like, yeah, but I've been like working really, really, really hard. Like you don't understand how hard I've been working.
It takes us 10 times the amount of effort to get anything done than it does for the average person to get the laundry done, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, the more people who know, the better, I think, because that's been the nice shorthand with the ADHD community is, we can skip right to the part where, you understand when I'm like, I really just couldn't get more water today. I'm sitting here with my empty water bottle for like 2 hours, thirsty as hell, and I couldn't go refill it. So
it's that executive function of
that's one of those things where it's like, hey, if I'm,
if I stop working,
check if I need some water, if I should take a break.
Oh my God, Jesse, you are a gem. I believe in you, Jesse. I do. I think you are fucking amazing.
Really appreciate that. And
that's all I care about. So,
what a great way to take grief and spin it into something that's helping. So
If everyone were to take tragedy and flip it into helping others, then we wouldn't have near the amount of tragedies we do.
yeah. So silver linings.
Yep.